Welcome everyone to our unit on aviation maintenance, publications and regulations. This is 4.2 where we're going to be discussing ADs and ACs and a little bit of AC/DC as well. So AD stands for Airworthiness Directives, and an Airworthiness Directive, before we get too much into it, I have a QR code for you here on the screen that's going to take you to a magical website called Dynamic Regulatory System, drs.faa.gov. If you click on that bad boy, or you scan the QR code, or if you just type it in your web browser, make sure you pull it up on the side because I'm going to show you how to access some of these airworthiness directives. Now, what is an airworthiness directive? Essentially, it's a notice from the FAA that notifies airmen about unsafe aircraft, and it corrects unsafe situations by listing requirements and fixes that need to be made to correct the unsafe aircraft. Compliance to this is mandatory, and just like 14 CFR, the airworthiness directives are treated like approved information. If you're wondering what the legal definition of approved is, we're going to get into that in the difference between being approved and being accepted, or acceptable means later. So now that we have a basic understanding of what an airworthiness directive is, I'm going to have the video pause and I'm going to have you do a couple of quiz questions for me. Okay, thank you for doing those quiz questions. Let's jump ahead and talk about compliance here. So, later on in this lesson, you're going to learn about an advisory circular and what advisory circulars are. For now, when it says AC, that means advisory circular, and essentially it's a notification from the FAA that's meant to inform, and there are basically three actions that an airworthiness directive can call for. It can ask for someone to inspect a suspect airplane, to repair it, or to do an alteration to it. And again, I have the exact legalese clip of it down here, even have a link down there. So again, just for your information, airworthiness directives have a special numbering system, and you're going to need to know this for the labs that we're going to be doing here. So you're going to notice that there's three numbers with two dashes in between them. The first number is the year. So what year do you think this is? If you guessed the year 2000, you're correct. After this dash, the second number is what's called a bi-weekly listing. What happens is that there are 26 bi-weekly periods in the year, and bi-weekly means every 2 weeks. So since there's 52 weeks, you divide that by 2 weeks per bi-week period, and that gives you 26 bi-weekly periods. So this happens to be the 15th bi-weekly period, which happens to work out to be in the middle of July. And then we have 52. 52 is a position listing. What that means is that you have multiple listings that happen during that year and during that bi-weekly listing. So during the 15th bi-weekly listing in the year 2000, this is the 52nd airworthiness directive that was released during that time. So that's the AD numbering format. Again, just make sure you're aware of that. Super important. Another thing worthy of mention here is that compliance to airworthiness directives has to be included in the maintenance log. Whenever you do a repair that is in compliance with an airworthiness directive, you got to make sure you include that. And I have a visual example for you right here where you can see clearly that the mechanic wrote down the airworthiness directive and then wrote down the repair that he made. At least a brief description of it. I might have written a little more myself, but that's what he chose to do, and I guess that's okay. So here we go. I want to give you a case scenario where you get to use all this juicy information you got to learn. And to start, I have a video here for you. Earlier this year, this video is being recorded in 2024, there was an Alaska Airlines flight where the door plug flew off the airplane in the middle of flight at about 16,000 feet altitude and caused a rapid depressurization in the cabin. Thank God everyone was okay and they were able to make an emergency landing. But naturally, because of this hazard, they issued an airworthiness directive. I want you to get a better idea of what this looks like by playing this video for you.
It's Friday, January 5th at Portland International Airport. Alaska Airlines Flight 1282 takes off at 5:07 p.m. local time. The aircraft, a Boeing 737 MAX 9, is bound for Ontario, California with 171 passengers and 6 crew members on board. It's now just a few minutes after takeoff and the flight is climbing through at 16,000 feet above sea level when a section near the rear of the aircraft rips off. The pilot makes an initial call to the Seattle control tower.
Yeah, well, let's go down. It's in Alaska. Copy to a declared emergency. We're descending down to 10,000. 50 prepared.
The pilot will also later call the Portland control tower. 21-year-old Emma Vu is on her way to visit college friends, and she's asleep near the front of the plane.
I woke up to the falling feeling of the plane. This was just so different because not only was the plane falling, but also the masks came down.
She has no idea what is unfolding in the back of the plane.
Everything happened in the span of a heartbeat. We were still clearly in the takeoff point.
Courtney Ringenbach was also sitting towards the front of the plane.
And all of a sudden there was a really loud pop or a loud bang and a whoosh of air, and the oxygen masks came down at the same exact time. And all of that was in the span of 1 second.
What she didn't know was that a part of the aircraft called the door plug had blown off, and there was now a door-size hole on the side of the plane. According to industry experts, a door plug is a specific panel of the fuselage located near the rear of the aircraft. The door plug is not an actual door. It covers a section in the body of the plane where an optional emergency exit could also fit. According to the NTSB, the flight did not require an additional emergency exit because it wasn't configured to take in more than 200 passengers. The aircraft itself is a relatively new 737 MAX 9 delivered to Alaska Airlines on October 31st. According to the NTSB, the door plug was located on row 26, and the NTSB later confirmed no one was seated in the 2 seats closest to the door. Portland Control Tower clears Alaska Airlines 1282 for emergency landing. It's now 5:26 p.m. local time. Just 20 minutes after the plane has taken off from Portland Airport, it touches down again. Passenger Stephanie Kidd captures this footage of the emergency landing.
FOs, please stay in your seats with your seatbelt securely fastened until you are told to stand up. Thank you.
5:34 p.m. local time. The plane is now at a gate. Firefighters are seen on board the flight. According to Alaska Airlines, several passengers on board experienced injuries that required medical attention, but all passengers are now medically cleared. 11:42 p.m. Alaska Airlines CEO says in a statement that they will be temporarily grounding its fleet, a 737-9 MAX, until all 65 of them are inspected over the next few days. Saturday, January 6th, the FAA announces that it will order the temporary grounding of certain 737 MAX 9 aircrafts. And Alaska Airlines says that they've canceled 160 flights, impacting about 23,000 passengers.
Okay, so moral of the story is here that airworthiness directives don't always happen because of emergencies. However, it is important to note that emergency airworthiness directives are often given out after emergencies, and you can see that clearly right here. So here's what we're going to do. We have the information for the airworthiness directive right here, and we're going to take some time to look it up. Again, keep this in your mind here. We have the year 2024, biweekly listing 2, and position 51. I'm going to pause the video for a little bit and toss you a quiz question, and I'd like you to write down what the AD numbering format would be for that. Again, here's the format. Again, year, biweekly listing, and position. With this information, I'd like you to write down that format. Go ahead. Thank you for doing that exercise. So what you should have gotten was that it's 2024-02-51 is the directive number. So we're going to go to drs.faa.gov. Again, you can go using this QR code and the information I have right here, or you could just pull it up in your web browser, and I'm going to do that right here, right now. So give me just a second here to reset my settings here. I'm going to go to the Dynamic Regulatory System website, click on Airworthiness Directives, and click on Emergency ADs. Once I do that, it's going to give me the chance to pull down some AD numbers, and I'm going to scroll down until I find the one I'm looking for. So again, it was 2024-02, and I think 51. I think this is it. So I'm going to click on that, and then I'm going to click Apply. And if you scroll down later on the page, you're going to see an emergency AD for the subject of doors. So that's looking like the correct one. An in-flight departure of a mid-cabin door plug. Yep, this is definitely the right situation here. So again, an accident or a situation happened. They issued out an emergency airworthiness directive. Now, let's dissect this a little bit and learn some things. Let's start by summarizing the AD. So we're going to take a look through here. And let's take a look here. So we know the background of the situation already because we just watched a 3-minute video on it. They decided that this situation is likely to exist in other products of the same type design. So they're prohibiting the further flight of the affected planes. And then, let's take a look here. Let's see, inspection or other action. What actions do we need to take here? As of the receipt of this emergency airworthiness directive, further flight is prohibited until the airplane is inspected and all applicable corrective actions have been performed using a method approved by the manager. So gotcha. They're still in the middle of an investigation with the FAA. They just want to ground all the planes that are affected temporarily. They also mention the alternative methods of compliance. So, yeah, that's essentially an airworthiness directive in a nutshell right there, right? So it wants us to know which compliance methods were requested, an inspection, a repair, or an alteration. Well, when I read the directive, it basically said that you had to wait. I believe inspection was mentioned, so if I were to pick one of these three, I would say inspection best fits what we have going on here. So again, yeah, we have a case scenario. Now there's one more thing we need to discuss before we call it a day on this, and that's this right here. Approved versus acceptable. These are two terms that you're going to see a lot in FAA, and it's super important that you know the difference. So this is my time to explicitly teach it to you right now. So first of all, let's cite some legislation here. In 14 CFR Part 43.13, it says, each person performing maintenance shall use methods acceptable to the administrator. Emphasis on the word acceptable. So there's the word acceptable, and then there's also the word approved. But what's the difference between the two? It seems like both of them are pretty similar, but there's actually a big difference. So approved, in this case, let's say it's approved data. Approved data is stuff that's used for major repairs and alterations, whereas acceptable data is stuff that's used for preventive maintenance, the minor repairs and alterations. Some examples of what constitutes approved data is airworthiness directives, STCs, TCDs, TSOs, aircraft specs, and then your acceptable data is more the things like advisory circulars, which we're going to go over in the next video, and then maintenance manuals and service bulletins. So I have a couple quiz questions for you on this subject, and my invitation to you is to go ahead and learn the material. Again, thanks for spending this time with me. I know this video was long. Best of luck learning. Clancy over and out.